I had before Quinlan came in today. I had a couple of Low Note people had some questions, or so I thought I'd address those at the beginning because I thought they might be questions that Quinlan would also want to know the answers to. So, one was when you revise, do you have to like notify me that you've revised so that I'll know? No, like I can't show you because it would have everybody's names on it, but when I go into grade, like everything that's been submitted for grading just pops up in a giant list. And then I just click a name and then it starts like going through them one after the other. And so if you submit a revision, what I'll see is when I go to grade it, in fact, I probably won't even remember that I'm grading your paper again. I might, but probably not. And then I look at it and I see a grade is above where I'm supposed to put a grade, and I go, oh. And then I'll go back and like look at your previous and what I said and what you need to fix, and then I'll go back and read it again and see if you fix those things. But it just pops in like any other essay does. You don't have to say send me an email or anything like that and say Nichols, I submitted a revision, because I'll just see it. Additionally, how long do we have to revise? Was that the other question? Yeah. You have until week 14, day 1 to revise, so it's quite a while. Or week 14, day 2. So you have a long time to revise. However, I'd caution you, I think that the best idea is, considering how long it's taken me to grade, these essays, because I have so many English 1301 students. In fact, I calculated it, and I think that I have about 40 more students than I do in an average semester. So that's part of what's taking me so long this semester. I thought at first it was just the baby, but I think it's just the extra students. Well, the baby's a factor too. So I think because I'm grading it and it's taking like a couple weeks to get to you, it's been like 2 weeks since you've written the thing, right? You're like, what did I write? And at that point, that's a good time to revise. So when you've forgotten kind of that mindset that you were in, because you've probably done like 4 or 5 different homework assignments for college classes since then, right? You probably even started working on this next essay, and you're probably ready to turn it in if you haven't already. Because it's due next time, remember? Okay. So once you're kind of out of the mindset you were the first time when you wrote it, that's when it's best to go back and try to revise. Because we do this thing where once we write a paper, our mind gets really attached to it, like almost like a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but you built it. So you're like, I have some age, like a child. You're like, this is my child. I birthed this from my own brain. Like, it's my baby. And Nichols says, like, you need to change this and this. And you're like, oh, how dare you tell me to change my baby? And you get really offended. But if you forget your baby, you're like, I don't remember even what my baby looks like. And then somebody tells you, fix your baby. And you're like, I don't even remember what this is. And so you're fine with it. So I think it's best to take at least a couple of weeks. Like if you were to write an essay and by some weird chance I graded it the next day, it probably wouldn't be the best idea to revise it that day, because you're like, like this is way better than he's telling me. But about 2 weeks is about the best time, I think. And then you can start. I mean, you could do multiple revisions after that. I don't think there's going to be the issue with if you do another revision, like you don't like what you get on the next time, or like you want a little higher. I think once you've done one revision on the paper, you're far less likely to have that my baby sense. So that should work after that first revision. You can just do it immediately. I don't suggest waiting on all your revisions until week 14, day 1 or 2, because if everybody does that, I'm having trouble right now with the keeping up of the regular essays. Like, imagine if everybody submitted all the revisions at once at the end of the semester. I have 170 students this semester, so 170 times 5 revisions all at the same time. That's going to be 30 times 5 subtracted from 1,000, so 850. So that'd be 850 revisions all on one day. I'm going to, spoiler alert, that's not possible. Like, you do have an infinite number of revisions at your disposal, but that's a theoretical infinite. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's theoretical. Like, if there were enough time, yes, I could do infinite revisions. But as it is, I probably can't handle 850 in the last 2 weeks of the semester. Bless you. That was in this area, right? The sneeze? Okay, go. I want to make sure that my ears are working properly. Is there any other aspect of revision that you would want clarified? Yes. Or anything, really.
Yeah, on my state for grade.
Yes.
Wait, what?
That was the next thing I was going to address after questions. Okay, so what did I guarantee Saturday night? Yeah, I'm not going to make any more guarantees ever again. Because I assumed that the reason I wasn't finishing all the grading on time was a result of maybe not laziness, but just misorganization of time, right? I just thought, okay, if I just get all the time at once, I'll be fine. And so what happened was on Friday, I spent most of that day, actually the daytime from I got here, and I came down to my classroom so nobody would talk to me. No offense to the other teachers, but it's much easier to get things done as you're down in the classroom. So I came down here instead of my office. And somebody always walks in, they're like, man, you know what's crazy about the news, man? I'm like, oh, here we go. Because I like talking to them. It's just, I got stuff to do. So I came down here and I did all my editing for the videos here. Then after that, went straight home. I had to go pick up my daughter at 5 from her one-act play practice. And then once I got back from that, ate dinner. Then I graded from 6:30 to about 9 when I passed out. And then in the morning, this is what's great, is when I have days when I can grade in the morning. So on Saturday, what I did was I woke up at 10, ate a little bit. At 11, I started grading. I graded till midnight. The next morning, I had told my parents I was going to come out to their house and we were going to eat burgers. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I forgot Boat Art Bash. You know what Boat Art Bash is? You ever heard of it in Commerce? We went there for an hour. Baby got too hot. We left. And I was like, yay. Not for the baby getting too hot, but I was just like, it really wasn't even hot. She wasn't hot at all. It was just, it was hot. And my wife didn't like it, so we left. And I was like, there was nothing to do. What?
You get to say the baby's hot or the baby's upset.
Yeah, it's perfect excuse. Somewhere. Perfect excuse. So I was like, I could grade. And we got Taco Bell and didn't cook just so I could eat faster. I ate in 5 minutes when we got home. So without that 1 hour and 15 minutes in the middle, I was grading. And then on Sunday, I graded even more. We didn't have anywhere to go. So I graded I skipped church. I went at 10 in the morning, and I again graded till midnight. In fact, these 2 days I used energy drinks to get those extra 3 hours. Usually I just pass out at 9. I graded all day on Saturday and Sunday and got 70 papers graded. So I was like, okay, this is literally just a physical limitation of the world. I thought it was me not doing a good job, but I graded all day, every day. And so guaranteeing that, and I thought, we wanted to watch Wonder Woman. We bought it, still haven't seen it. Baby was born around that time, so we didn't go to the theater. Haven't been able to watch Wonder Woman. Came in the mail. My wife's like, we can watch Wonder Woman. And I was like, yeah, on Friday. And then it changed to Saturday, and then Sunday. And then I said, just whenever I get these first ones graded. That's when we'll watch Wonder Woman. So we just don't watch Wonder Woman. My wife hates me. But only informally, not a full-on hatred. So I'm getting them graded. I graded 3 last night before I fell asleep. And I plan on, just continuing to grade. And hopefully, I can't even make a promise of a day. So as soon as it comes in, you're welcome to revise and then turn that in. Also essay 2 once you get that done. So I'm going to grade as fast as I can. I think maybe the problem that I had was the very first weekend that y'all had turned them in, I did not grade on Saturday. And I think that was the issue, is that usually I would grade on Saturday and Sunday, and this one I went, I'll just start grading on Sunday, and that was a big mistake. I should have graded all day Saturday, because on Sunday we went to church too, and so that was bad. Was good for church, but, bad for y'all. Any other questions? So sorry about the date thing. Sorry about the guarantee. I'm not going to guarantee anymore. Just hopefully you'll see grades come in. My apologies. That does mean that anybody who hasn't turned theirs in will not have the notification sent to Miss Blair or Miss Davies until once I've finished the last one. And then I'll see who's all got theirs done, turn the grades into them, and if there's any missing, they'll see that at that time. So it's going to delay that a little bit for those who are terrible. I'm sorry, not terrible, but currently behind. Any more questions?
You know if we have college on Monday?
Do I know if you have college on Monday?
Yeah, because we don't have school on Monday.
Y'all don't have school on Monday? Yeah, we have college on Monday. Yeah, we have college on Monday. What do y'all have off for?
Just like a
Teacher
in
and
service.
Oh yeah, we don't get those. We have Fridays for office days.
What is the overall grade for the class?
Overall grade, like what does it count as?
What does it need to be?
What does it need to be?
Like a 60?
Yes. Turn and say that to that person.
Unless you get at least a 60 and they'll pass you.
Isn't it? It's quieter that way on the microphone. I prefer not to record that. So, and it does count for 15% of your grade. But once you get there, you're good. More questions? No? Is that it?
I have a comment. I have a question.
A comment. Okay, yes.
I personally just thought that you looked at mine and said no, and that's why I wasn't grading.
Oh, actually, though you did just make a comment about a paper that was not graded, I should say something about papers that are graded. I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I did to another class, but do not take your grade as a personal shot against you. Remember, I just barely learned your names. Yeah, like I think that's a lot of times like when you're in a class that has basically subjective grading. There's a bunch of different objective elements, but I mean overall, if you think about it, as opposed to math where it's 2 + 2 = 4, and if you're right, you're right, and if you're wrong, you're wrong. This does not have an I/O switch or a 1/0 switch. It's a no yes/no component. It's all these factors together create an argument or a composition, and that composition can be successful depending on various elements. Sometimes it can still have all the elements and not be successful because of other factors that are going on. So I think what a lot of people end up doing psychologically is they tend to take the grade that I give them as a marker of how I like them as a person, and that's not true. Like if you look at the feedback, I generally give pretty extensive feedback. If I don't give you extensive enough feedback, let me know. Nichols, like you said, like you gave me like a grade that wasn't in the 90s, but you didn't tell me what I could do to fix it, and I'll figure out something. Like I must have just been like I thought something weird when I was grading it. But has anybody noticed that I give lots of feedback with those who've got it graded, like sometimes paragraphs. In fact, sometimes I have to restrict myself, and I'll go back and I'll revise my feedback, and I'll say, wait, this is too much. They're not going to read it. Like when you get a really long email, you go, oh gosh, where's the important information? So I try to boil it down to that important information and give it to you. So don't take that as a personal marker, especially in the narrative essays. I think that's likely because you're telling a story that you experienced, so it's like you're talking about yourself. And so you feel like the grade is on you. Like you've graded like my life. Like you've just graded, you said that my life does not show sufficient structural integrity to, present the message. That's not, you shouldn't feel bad about that. Just make the revisions turn in. Any more questions? I got answers all day. It might feel like this was a waste of, well, probably the biggest waste of time in this class today was when I was talking about exactly what happened this weekend. But other than that, I feel like the questions that we've answered are, even the length of the answers is necessary for understanding. So I think we can move on.
Yes.
You shouldn't have said yes so eagerly. Today we are covering MLA. One of the reasons that I have the class that we do the pieces of paper, and then I don't know if it's fun as so much as it is maybe interesting, that I've never had something like that before in a class where somebody tried to expose my psychological issues. Or not psychological issues, but like the way that we interact as people and the way we sort of go out for our best grade for ourselves. And so I make that kind of fun. In addition, the exemplification one, we're going to see the guy jumping over the hurdles and he sucked. That was really fun. Wood catching fire.
You said you were going to show us another video.
I did say I was going to show you another video. We'll see if we have time for that at some point. Not today. But today we're covering MLA. I will be going through this fairly quickly, just so we can get to the most important stuff, which is kind of at the end. So I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time kind of meandering here like I often do. There's not a whole lot of examples that you can provide when you're just literally talking about the formatting of essays, like what it's supposed to look like. I would say that most of what I'm talking about today comes from the MLA tab of this writer's reference book. I want to make a suggestion today that you follow for your entire college is if you bought this book, and my suggestion is to buy this book. This is probably the book of all the books you'll have in any of your classes that you should hold on to for your entire college career. And the reason is because this MLA tab is going to be useful for helping you cite research on papers that you do in every class, because almost every class is going to require some sort of research, I think, component, with the exception of maybe math. I can't see why. They may do research papers in math. No, I didn't figure. If it's not on my math lab, you're not doing it. But this is going to be useful for every time you write a research paper in any class, and that's, I think, through the 4 year as well, unless they change MLA again, which the last time they did that was like, I think, they did a year ago, but the last time before, I think it was like 7 years before that. Also, if you're in other classes that aren't just, English, of course, it's got an APA tab as well, so that's going to help you with basically every other class that does research, because almost all of them use MLA. Let's see. So I often have students, they rented this book this semester, and then they still have to have it for 1302, which everybody has to have English 1302. And so they're like, oh, what did I do? So then it's pay for the same book twice. It's better just buy this. I think I mentioned that on the first day when we did the syllabus, but I just wanted to say it again. In fact, I'll leave it out until we end up going to it. All right, MLA, here we go. I said that literally.
Hey, Mr. Nicholas,
Yes.
What edition is that?
This particular one is the 8th edition, and I think that the 8th.
There's some green on that one, but it's still the 8th edition. I don't know why.
Oh, the reason it's the green is because this one has a section in it called "With Writing About Literature," so that it also will work for literature courses. Granted, that edition will work for literature courses as well. I would say that I think that the only ones that are completely valid right now are the ones that have this little orange circle that says MLA update. If it doesn't have that, it's probably the old edition of MLA, even though it's the current edition of the book. Sorry about that. Because I don't know what it was. They added some new author. Like, it used to be the Hacker Manual, then Diana Summers, or Nancy Summers. Is Diana Summers like a singer or something? Why did I say Diana? So Nancy Summers, she came onto the book, and I think it's something that like people do when they have like pride or like an ego. She comes on, and what do you know? A new edition comes out. The only time they ever put new editions of this book out is when there's new MLAs. So she puts a new edition out. 6 months later, a new MLA is announced. So then she has the same edition number, but with update. That's the whole reason you do new edition numbers, is when they have. And then I gotta explain why I don't with the circle on it, because some lady decided she had an ego about needing to have her name on a book. Okay, MLA. Here we go. Oh, that would help. Bless you, I think. So let's talk about first when I say MLA. What is the MLA? Let's talk about the MLA. So according to MLA.org/about, founded in 1883, the Modern Language Association of America, that's MLA, provides opportunities for its members to share their scholarly findings and teaching experiences with colleagues and discuss trends in the academy. MLA members host an annual convention and other meetings, work with related organizations, and sustain one of the finest publishing programs in humanity. For over 100 years, members have worked to strengthen the study and teaching of language and literature. So that's the MLA themselves, who they are. And according to the MLA Handbook 8th edition, academic writing is at its root a conversation among scholars about a topic or question. Scholars write for their peers, communicating the results of their research through books, journal articles, and other forms of published work. In the course of a project, they seek out relevant publications to learn from and build on earlier research. Through their own published work, they incorporate, modify, respond to, and refute previous publications. Given the importance of this conversation to research, authors must have comprehensible, verifiable means of referring to one another's work. Such references enable them to give credit to the precursors whose ideas they borrow, build on, or contradict, and allow future researchers interested in the history of the conversation to trace it back to its beginning. The references are formatted in a standard way so they can be quickly understood and used by all like a common language. So essentially that's the justification for what they're trying to do. So you need to use research from others. And so what they have is a standard method of presenting that research in your papers to show where you got what you got. That's one of the MLA's goals, is so we can all understand where people get information and do it in the same way. You know, much like nails. You know, the nails didn't used to be standardized, they would just make nails. But then we started running them through like the industrial processes, and what's the thing with the mechanization? I don't know what you call it, but like when they're all standardized, all the nails now, they're the same, right? So you never have to hit a nail, and it's like, well, how's this one gonna work? So they try to make it standardized so it fits all, so nobody gets confused. Basically, MLA style is a format for writing that shows the reader in a simple fashion exactly from where the writer got his or her information. If the reader wants to follow the writer's trail of ideas back to their origins, they can. It's extremely useful both for making sure that writers actually do their research and for making that same research available to readers. Citing where you got information is one of the main reasons or main ways that we can check up on academics, make sure that the research that they're doing is valid. Yearly, in fact, I read probably about once every 2 months, somebody gets caught having cited research that doesn't say what they said it said, and their whole study is invalidated. So it's good that we have these requirements of people to cite where they got their information, because it helps us to basically be able to preserve the truth, which is important. Now, I will be calling the style of MLA formatting. So MLA technically stands for the Modern Language Association of America. And when I say, I'll be talking about MLA style all the time, but rather than have to say the word style, I would just constantly refer to it as MLA. So when I say, oh, MLA, I'm not talking about the organization, I'm talking about the formatting for papers. I was going to say, make sure your paper follows MLA. I'm talking about MLA style. So, oh, I should warn you, I meant to warn you, I forgot. This is not a fun day. This is me just talking about how papers are formatted, so this is not like exciting. I gave you the videos last time to hopefully like make a buffer for today. This is not exciting stuff. I'm just warning you. Maybe I could like be exciting or try to. I give it effort maybe, I don't know, we'll see. So like I was saying before, Spiral Bound Writer's Reference 8th edition with MLA update. Will be extremely useful for all of our MLA work. It says you have to, I would prefer you open the tab of the MLA Writer's Reference, which I actually do if you have it with you. Because I want to look at this. There are 5 different sections in the MLA tab. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It tells you where those are. And MLA 1 is the one we've basically already gone over in class already, so I'm not going to go through that in very much detail. But supporting a thesis. We talked about the thesis a lot already in class. So, supporting a thesis, MLA 2 is citing sources and avoiding plagiarism. MLA 3 is integrating sources, 4 documenting sources, and MLA 5 concerns a manuscript format in a sample paper. So like it actually has a sample paper you can go to and look at and see how they cited things. I remember back when I was a student, I just flipped straight to the sample because it was easier for me to understand a lot of stuff. No, we're not doing that. So, supporting a thesis, I'm just going to fly through this. Basically, get a thesis form for your paper. Organize your ideas before you jump right to the paper. And then when you're supporting your thesis in the paper, make sure you provide background information or context, explain terms or concepts, support your claims, limit authority to your argument, anticipate and counter objections. All of those things are things you're going to need to do in supporting a thesis, which we've sort of talked about all these before a little bit. Now the only difference that we haven't done, the thing we haven't done yet, is using sources to inform and support your argument. That's something we haven't done. With the cause-effect paper, you're welcome to do that, but you don't have to. But you need to research to find support rather than rely on your own mind to supply evidence, especially on Essay 3 and the research paper and the annotated argument. Because we're at a point where I kind of want people not to just rely on their own minds and like what they know once we get past Essay 2. So citing sources and avoiding plagiarism. Like, what is the whole point of this whole source citing thing? So according to the Hacker and Summers 8th edition, your research paper represents your ideas in conversation with the ideas in your sources. To be fair and responsible, you must acknowledge your debt to the writers of those sources. If you don't, you commit plagiarism, a serious academic offense. Oh gosh. Got a hair in front of my face, sorry. Ever happened? It's like in your vision. You ever have a gnat flying in your car right in front of your face? Oh my gosh. Worst days and all. So the reason for citing sources is to avoid plagiarism. We don't want to not acknowledge the debt that we owe to the writers of the sources that we're using. We don't want to steal from them. So we have to cite sources to avoid plagiarism. Well, what is plagiarism? According to the Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary, I didn't say that right at all. According to the Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 11th edition, to plagiarize is to commit literary theft, which is quoted in MLA, page 6, which is this book. It also involves presenting another person's ideas, information, expressions, or entire work as one's own, also cited on the MLA book. Basically, anytime you fail to cite quotations and borrowed ideas, anytime you fail to enclose borrowed language in quotation marks, or if you summarize someone else's ideas in your own words without citing those ideas, you're plagiarizing. And that's from page 400 of this book. And I reflected the third rule to kind of show my own thoughts on the matter. So basically, anytime you're quoting from somebody, you know, like if you were to find an article and you're like, oh, I like what that guy's saying, you copy it, you paste it in your own paper. It sounds like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't copy somebody else's ideas. That's fine, as long as you put a quotation mark at the front and the back of it and say that you got it from that person. And then you're attributing that to that person, which is good. So that's fine to do that. Or if you don't fill that, if you don't put that language in quotation marks, and this is the key to, like, I don't know if you were in elementary school, like when maybe the teacher was having you write like a little essay or something on, like, I don't know, elephants, and they let you use the encyclopedia, and you flip to elephants. You remember what an encyclopedia is? It's like Wikipedia when all they had were books. It's where Wikipedia actually gets the pedia part, or encyclopedia. It's funny, I used to say that as a joke. It seems like some people actually are looking at me like they're learning this for the first time. They're like, what are books? We didn't use books in school, like, for encyclopedia. But you look it up, right, the elephant thing, and you're like, here's my essay on elephants. The teacher said, put it in your own words, right? They said, put it in your own words. Don't just copy the words. And you're like, oh, okay, so you flip the words around and stuff. And you got to act like it was you. But in MLA, even if you put something in your own words, even if you summarize it, paraphrase it, just take an idea, you still have to attribute it to the person you took it from. So it's not a way around having to cite. You still, if you take something from somebody, whether it's just an idea or a full-on quote, you have to cite that properly. Now, if I say, okay, we're trying to avoid plagiarism. No, plagiarism sucks. Avoid it. What does that mean? According to MLA Handbook 8th edition, plagiarism is thus a kind of fraud, deceiving others to gain something of value. While plagiarism only sometimes has legal repercussions, for example, when it involves copyright infringement, violating an author's exclusive legal right to publication, it's always a serious moral and ethical offense. So sometimes it's not exactly a legal offense, so you won't be breaking the law, I don't think, in this class if you were to, cite something improperly, but it would be a serious moral and ethical offense to try to get away with using somebody else's stuff. Now, when we say citing sources helps us avoid plagiarism, what is that? What's citing sources? Let's see. To cite is to quote by way of example, authority, or proof, and that's from the Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary definition of cite. You must cite anything you borrow from a source, including direct quotations, statistics, other specific facts, visuals such as cartoons, graphs, and diagrams, any ideas you present in summary and paraphrase. And that is from the Hacker and Summers, actually 7th edition of this book, not this book, but the 7th edition on page 377, because they changed the way it was written, and I like the way they said it before that. But see how I've been just constantly reading quotes, right? Like an overwhelming number of verbatim reading of quotes. And I'm putting weird crap after every one of them. That's how you cite. You have to make reference to any idea you take from the source, and that's why I've been so deliberately taking so many so I can have examples. So you see, like, anytime right here you can see if it's in quotes, that means I use the exact same language that was in that book. Like, I literally lifted the quote, took it out, and put it in my paper. That's what the quotation marks mean. And then at the end of the sentence, I put in parentheses who I got it from. And this actually references to a works cited page. I think I have a works cited page in the middle here somewhere. Yeah. Well, no? Yeah. See, when I'm referencing Hacker and Summers, the 7th edition, it's this citation right here that I'm referencing. And I can see, okay, if I look up this information, like if I go to Amazon, type all this in, granted, probably if I type in writer's reference, it's going to pull up the book, but just in case, I got to like call around to not Amazon. I mean, what happens if Amazon went down tomorrow? What would we do? Like, we lost Google. We have to like call people and ask for information. It's terrible. But this would help us find books. So there's Hacker and Summers 7th edition. Cite is a definition from the dictionary. So see, that's how you cite a dictionary definition. It's a very old definition. It's still relevant. In this case, notice I was telling you like this is weird, but see how I have like the author here, and then I've got the page number, right? Well, here I don't have that. I just have a page number. What is up with that? Well, it's because I already said it beforehand. I said according to the MLA Handbook 8th edition, because I've already said according to and like put it in my sentence. I don't have to do it again. I just do it the once. So you could actually avoid having to put the name always in parentheses as long as you constantly said it during the stuff. Yes?
Can we do that in our essays?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I think I found that because people are using online sources on Essay 3, which is where you're having to compare 2 news articles, as long as people are constantly saying the names of the authors as they're switching back and forth when comparing the articles, and they don't have any page numbers because they're online sources, they ended up never having to use these parenthetical citations at all. They only ever had to say according to Johnson and according to Smith.
Then do we have to put it on our works cited page?
Yes, indeed you do. And so you'd have it like here, and then the name you keep talking about, like this name here that would keep popping up would refer back to the other thing. And there's different little rules for different situations. You can see here I'm not using any quotation marks, which means I'm summarizing it in my own words, but I'm still putting who I got it from. And if I had said their name here, I wouldn't be putting it again right there. In this case, where I say QTD in, that's actually where the definition from the dictionary for plagiarize is quoted directly in this book. And so I'm saying that that definition from the dictionary is quoted in this book. So I'm actually citing it from this book, not from the dictionary itself. Here I don't have time to mention them again, so I'm just MLA 6, MLA. And I can actually, this is what the great thing is about this, is I can go to this book, turn to page 6, and this is the whole idea behind this. And it says, Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary defines plagiarism as committing literary theft. Right there. So it's actually cited. It's presenting another person's ideas, information, expressions, or entire work as one's own. So it's a way to like check up on those who are writing. Like you can check them and make sure that they've got what they say they've got. In fact, one time I found a student who was writing a paper about abortion, and she was writing about how abortion, terrible and negative. And I saw the title of the article she was citing, and I was like, well, that's weird. The title doesn't seem like it lends to the idea of having a negative opinion on abortion, because it was like in developing countries or something like that. Like something in the title made me think it was more positive on the idea of abortion. And when I read the sentence that she put from the page number that she said, it was there. It was just like the sentence was something like what she said was abortion should never be done. And like the beginning of the sentence that she left out was only an insane person would think that abortion should never be done. And so she left out the part that negated what she was trying to talk about, and then just kept the part that, kind of like if you were to watch a news story and they edit out all the parts that make a person not look crazy. Did I ever tell you all about the Arrested Development, the show? There was like a guy on the news, and he says, I know what's going to happen no matter what. Y'all are just going to edit out everything I say and make it say, oh, I killed my father. And that's all they used was the part where he says, I killed my father. They just cut out the part that they needed. But this is a way where you can check up on people as long as they're doing it properly and make sure that they're not saying something says what it doesn't. Again, you can tell in this case, exact words, author's name, page number. Oh, is that all? Oh, there's another one. MLA handbook on page 5, so I've cited like 2 full paragraphs. Are they really there, Nichols? Academic writing is given the importance of right there. You can check it out. Make sure. This is the way you can prove it to the reader. And of course, here in a situation, you can see it's a little different because I'm citing a website. No page number there. So it's always different rules depending on the situation. Those rules are right here in this book. So now I've gone back and shown all the ones that I used right there. Let's keep going. So this is how citation basically works in MLA, okay? The page number of the reference, as well as the author's name, or some key phrase from the reference's title if there is no author, is listed in parentheses. Like for example, the MLA handbook doesn't have an author. It's the Modern Language Association. Modern Language Association of America is the author. So you say MLA handbook. Now, if the author's name has already been mentioned outside the parentheses, repeating the name doesn't happen. So if I've already said Hacker and Summers, I don't have to put it in parentheses. Yeah. At the end of the paper, there's a list of works cited, and they're arranged alphabetically by authors' last names or title for those references about authors, as you can see here. CHHMMP. That's the alphabet. There's no shame if when you're doing a works cited list, you're going, everybody does it. You know, nobody remembers the alphabet perfectly all the time. So there's a page number, author's name, they both get included, okay? If you don't have page numbers, you just do the author's name. And sometimes online sources will not have page numbers. Do not do page numbers by getting on an online source like Wikipedia and going, okay, page down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've had students do that before. I'm like, what's this page number in Wikipedia? First of all, why are they using Wikipedia? Second of all, where's the page number? And they said, oh, I just went page down 1, 2, 3. It's too much work. Do not do that. Yes.
What if it's like on a website or something and there's no page?
Don't include them. So you don't need to unless they're there. But if they are there, you have to. Now, an example of this references works cited entry right here. So this particular work, and then I'll get to why this looks like this with all this information here in a little bit. But that's essentially what the works cited pages look like, and this like right here. And all these little things that are in the middle reference to the last page, which is the works cited. This actually really bothers me. On a true works cited, you would have this be centered. This I just made that sound my grandma makes when somebody does something they're not supposed to. Does anybody have a grandma that does like? Let's see. I need to move this over just a little bit so it looks better. Does anybody know you could do that? Like move little boxes and stuff over slightly to fit your needs. I always wonder why we get done with lessons so much faster in this class because nobody says anything ever. I was like, well, the lesson went really fast today. And I look and like, no question, like 0 questions. Like, except Ashlyn. She's been doing a good job. I got you. All right. So, make sure anytime, I've already said this, but anytime you're using an author's exact words, you're putting those in quotation marks. So the quotation marks indicate that you've used somebody's exact words. I know it's going to be a little odd getting used to the idea of using quotation marks in a situation that's not just dialogue and stories, because that's where you've mostly seen it used before, right? It's like, oh, this means somebody's talking. In our case, it just means you're using the exact words of somebody else. So essentially, they are talking, it's just they've talked in the book, and you're quoting what they've said. I feel like that could have done more harm as a metaphor than it helped. And here's an example of that from earlier. So I can go into this book on page 377, except I don't have the old book. I don't think. Does anybody have the 7th edition on them? I think it's back in my office. Oh. Ah, that's 8th too. How unfortunate. But it's there. Should have brought the 7th edition book. I didn't think I would need it today. Forgot all about that. If you decide not to quote exact words, so like you're like, okay, I'm gonna put this in my own words or summarize it because I don't need all this stuff. I just need to kind of break it down into like a simpler version. You're welcome to paraphrase or summarize the author's words. In fact, I think more often than not, you should be paraphrasing rather than using the exact words all the time. That can become cumbersome for a reader. You still have to give a reference to the author's name and page number of the source, so it's not a way around that.
If you paraphrase, you still have to use the author's.
Yes. Like when you're in elementary school and the teacher said, put it in your own words, that was a way of getting around having to cite, but now it's not. Basically, the whole reason we cite is anytime we're using somebody else's ideas, whether that's word for word or not. So we have to cite in both situations. Now, integrating sources. So it's very tempting, like I just talked about, when you're using sources to let them overtake your paper, where you end up not really doing anything. You're just sort of making this weird mosaic of other people's quotes. It's very common. So don't expect like nobody's ever done this before. It happens a lot. But there's a couple of different suggestions the book has for keeping the sources from taking over your paper. So try to limit your use of quotations. Only use exact quotes when absolutely necessary. Don't quote excessively because it's important that you're making the arguments and not just stringing a bunch of quotes together. And say, I've got it on page 380. Oh, it's a 7th edition. Dadgummit, why am I citing that one so much? Ugh. These things English teachers get angry about. Another thing you can do is use the ellipsis mark and brackets. So maybe you need a quote, but you don't need the whole quote. You're like, oh, I kind of need the beginning and the end of this. I don't really need the middle. So an ellipsis mark is good for that. You say, plagiarism is thus a kind of fraud, deceiving others to gain something valuable. Plagiarism, and you don't really need that legal repercussions part. You're like, that's kind of just in the way, but I need the quote, so what do? Because I need the end part, I need the beginning part. Well, you can use ... to imply there's more in the middle that's missing. So plagiarism is thus a kind of fraud, deceiving others to gain something of value. ... crap I don't need. It's always a serious moral and ethical offense. And the brackets, I think I said this on the next slide, right? The brackets are for when you need to insert your own words into a quote. This isn't for commentary, but when you realize the way you quoted something messes up the pronoun, verb, tenses, or capitalization. So the original quote is this. It is thus a kind of fraud because it was already talking about plagiarism in like the paragraph beforehand. But you need to say plagiarism is a kind of fraud because you weren't talking about anything beforehand. You need to make clear that the quote, when the pronoun was it, is actually referring to plagiarism. So you can just put brackets and say what it's trying to say here is plagiarism. You've seen this probably done in the news before, whether you realize it or not. Like if there was an article about, say, Kim Kardashian or something, like in the news, and let's say, I don't know what, does anybody know if, like does Kanye have any pet names for Kim Kardashian? No? Like anything he calls her in conversation that other people will be like, who? I don't know, let's make up something. Let's say he calls her like Pookie. Like, so he's sitting there saying, like, back when she got robbed or whatever, or held at gunpoint, like in Europe, where he's like, I was so scared for Pookie. I was afraid she wasn't going to be okay. Well, they can't put Pookie in a news article. And they're like, okay, he's talking about Kim. So what they say is, I was so afraid for, in brackets, Kim, hoping that she's okay. It's because they took out the word Pookie and put Kim in there, because that's who it's really talking about. Just put Pookie in there, nobody's going to understand what that means. So they have to go take his exact quote, change out a word for something a little more accurate for the reader, while still maintaining the context. It still means the exact same thing that he was saying. It's just a different word's been used to make it more sense for the reader yet.
So anytime you change a word in an exact quote, any word you put into place, you have to put brackets around it.
Yes, and that technically needs to still preserve the exact same meaning of the sentence. It's just a way of you getting like around like weird verb tense things and pronouns that are when you need the actual word, not the pronoun. It's a way to get around that. Also, if you have really long quotations, I know you don't want to do this. You're like, I want to hide my quotations because I don't want the teacher to realize how many I'm using. And it's excessive. But I actually get more impressed when I see people are open with that and are setting off their long quotes the way you're supposed to. If it goes like around 5 lines or more, I actually think like once you hit above 5 lines, that a quote is lasting. What you need to do is called a block quote, which is to set off the quotation by, and remember, you're not having to do page length for me, you're doing word length, so it doesn't matter like if it's making the paper less long. But this quote was like around 5, 6 lines, 7 lines long. And so what you do is you hit enter at the end of wherever you're at. You do a colon, you hit enter, you tab this portion over, you single space it, and you don't do the quotation marks. And then instead of putting the parentheses before the period, as you saw earlier, all the parentheses that I've ever done were before the period, because it's part of that sentence, technically. Before the period. Before the period. In this particular case with the block quote, you're doing it period, then the page number. That's just how it works in block quotes. It just kind of reverses a couple of little rules to make it visually more, I don't know, interesting or easier to set apart. The little block quote's a way of using a big quote without having it just take up a ton of your paper and be hard to find in the paragraph. We'll notice that the sample research paper that I give y'all later includes quite a bit of this. Yes?
So if you use a colon, then you push tab and you set it over?
Yeah, you single space it, and you set it over like about, I think it's like a 1/2 inch.
Okay.
An inch would be too far. I think. Not look.
There's no quotation marks on a block quote?
No. They're in a block quote, it's implied that there are quotation marks there. And if you're ever doing, like, if you're paraphrasing an idea from an article, then that takes you like 10 lines to paraphrase it. You don't have to put that in a block quote because it's not an actual quote, it's just paraphrasing. So you can paraphrase as long as you need to and not have to set it off. There's a really good yellow box in this section that'll help you with integrating sources as well. On page 406, it actually is this edition this time. And it's got little verbs and signal phrases you can use, and it's very easy when writing any kind of paper that's using research and quotes to constantly use the word says. Like Hacker says, Smith says, Johnson says. It gets very old very quickly. But you can say, well, he acknowledges, this person confirms, Smith implies that, however, Johnson rejects this. So you've got different words you can use depending on the situation that'll help and be a little bit more accurate than the word says. And this can help you, keep from sounding really boring with those quotes. It helps them sound more interesting when you use these different possibilities. Now, basically, the idea is to let the reader know why a source is being used with these little transition type words. They don't explain themselves by existing. They need you to introduce them before they just appear. And that's one of the biggest problems I have with anybody using research is they'll often just throw a quote in there, and then I don't know why it's there. There's no explanation before or after for why it's there. I'm just supposed to, figure out that this is related, but that's generally what the writer's job is to explain in what way all the information being used is related. You also don't want to just list a bunch of sources like I was saying. So documenting sources, this is where we get to the stuff that's more formatting and I think probably a little more relevant. But blah, blah, blah. This is what a works cited would look like for a paper of about 10 pages, which we're never going to do. The most you'll have to do is about 5 sources, but there's all different types of sources here. Once you go to a place like A&M Commerce, you'll probably end up having to write research papers that are around that long. They do like 10-page research papers, sometimes pretty standard. There's all kinds of different considerations there. This is one over climate change, and I think it incorporated like the Al Gore movies. So you got the movie there, you got Rod Drever's review of the movie, you've got an article from online, you have articles from actual physical books, you've got articles from an online book, online periodical, online journal, online newspaper, all kinds of different types of sources, and all those it tells you how to do those in this book. So if you ever have a source and you're like, okay, I think I don't know how to use it, you just look in here and see what matches the closest. A few types of sources. MLA has this thing they started where they said, we're going to make it much easier. This book is about 1/3 as thick as the usual one because they try to simplify it in this whole container thing. they say, okay, everything's got author, title of source, title of container, other contributed version, number, published, publication date, location. It doesn't have that stuff, you don't include it, but what it has, you do include. And then containers contain things, which we'll get to. It's just you basically just follow what I'm saying.
Is that just a website?
Huh?
Is that just a website?
This,
Yeah, can everybody access that?
I think, MLA Style Center, Works Cited a Quick Guide. I think that this website's more confusing than I am. So I'm just gonna say it. This is why I made this PowerPoint, because this website sucks. Purdue OWL is a little better. If y'all want to write that down for like online help with MLA citation, Purdue OWL, which I do cite on the works cited page at the end. But here are the types of sources I think you're most likely to use. I've got 6. And these all come from the book, like they're in this book. But I'm listing the 6 and like where they actually are in the book. This is type number 30, books. For example, the Hacker and Summers book is a physical book. You have the authors, the title in italics, the publisher, and the year. My suggestion is when you're on these few slides doing a formatting, would be either 1, to go back later and download the PowerPoint, or 2, to take a picture of it rather than try to write this by hand. Because if you're writing this by hand, italics don't come out very clearly, and you're much more likely to make a mistake when writing formatting by hand. Like I think it's just not a good idea. Like if you're trying, oh, there's an arrow that says italics, but then you might forget to put a period because you were paying attention to how you're writing italics and stuff. But you can see here, like we have 2 authors, Gurovich, Philip, and after the first author, you just do first name, last name. It's always last name first until the other ones, but it tells you that. Standard operating procedure, Penguin, 2008. That's a publisher, year, name of the book. So I don't think you're gonna do this very often, so I'll just move on from this one. Second type would be article in a journal, but this is a physical journal, like you physically go and you find a journal and you cite it, which none of them are doing that either. But this stuff is still relevant for the type I think you'll use the most, which is later. So you have authors. In this case, you do have a book, but you have articles within that book. So you actually have title of an article. Then you have title of the journal itself, which is like the greater work. Then you include the volume number, issue number, the date, and the pages that you have. So this is Ricardo Campa's Work as an Automata, a sociological analysis of the Italian case, from the Journal of Evolution and Technology, in the 24th volume, issue number 1, year 2014, pages 70 to 85. There's another example down below. Pavlicek, Yaroslav, and Ladislav Christopher. I have no idea if this is right. Now casting unemployment rates with Google search as evidence from the Visegrad group countries, from the journal PLOS One, volume number 10, issue 5, year 2015, pages 1 to 11. So notice there are only minor differences, I think, between the two. For the most part, it's relatively similar. But this one only has 1 author, this one's got 2. You can see there's little minor differences. A third type is website. I don't think people will use this very often. Some you will, but mostly I want you to go to particular types of websites, not just random websites. But in this case, still mostly the same information. You can see authors, the title of the site, the sponsor of the site, and that's if it's different than the author. The last date it was updated, and the URL, which is the web address. Really just a simplified version of the web address. We don't really need that whole, like you can just copy paste the web address and it's got all that crap on it. Because an algorithm is building the website, it's not actually a permanent web address. So I just want you to include the basic stuff. All the way to like the craziness starts and then just forget that. So in this case I have Stephen Railton's Mark Twain and His Times, and he's the sponsor of his own website, but he also has it on the University of Virginia Library website as well. Put that in 2012, and it's from twain.lib.virginia.edu. So if I go there, I can relatively expect to find, or I could search on Google for this and type in that last bit, and it probably is going to pull up the right stuff in my place. Now, fourth type, this is the third most common source type I think you would use. An article in a newspaper from the web. We'll be using that definitely on Essay 3, depending on what you want to do. But you have authors, title of article, title of site. So this is all basically the same stuff for every single one of them. Authors, title of the article, the title of the site or web or book, then a date and a URL, because we don't have page numbers here or issue numbers or volume numbers. We just have website. We have Ben Rosen's $50 minimum wage leader robots McDonald's CEO bullet from the Christian Science Monitor, 26th of May 2016. And because, even though it's long and annoying looking, it does have the title of the article in it all the way to this point. If I hit enter on this article, it should go directly to that website. Like if I copy paste it and go to that article, or at least it did at this point. And you have a period at the end. So notice the commas too when I have like title of site, comma, date, comma, URL. It matches that here. So title of site, comma, date, comma, URL, period, just like it did there. So you have to make sure the commas and the periods match up as well, not just the type of writing you're doing. And the fifth, article in a newspaper, but from a database. So it's possible you can also find your newspaper articles on the databases that we have. And it's basically the same stuff, you'll notice. Ben Rosin's $50 minimum wage, leading robots, Christian Science Monitor, May 2016. But with a period, because we have what MLA calls a container, which is a database, and that database contains the newspaper article. So we have to cite the container. That's what MLA says. So opposing viewpoints in context is the name of the database, found basically at this address. There's a whole bunch of crap that goes all the way to about here at the end of that site. Please don't put that. I'm going to be very angry. It's going to make your works cited page like that long. Just cut off basically the stuff you can tell is the normal crap at the beginning and all that extra stuff. Just ignore it. And put period at the end. Or an article from a journal in a database. So this is like I said earlier with the article in a journal, like that. But this one's not a print journal, this one's from a database, which is mostly what the articles you're going to be looking at this semester are. I've got basically the same stuff, author's title of article, title of journal, volume, issue, number, date, pages, but we've also got a database. So we have a database name, and then we have a thing for database articles. It's called DOI, Digital Object Identifier, which gives us a direct link to that one article on the database. So if you've got like some special article number, reference number, you use that. Compa Ricardo, it's all the same stuff we saw before, except when we get here, we have the database, comma, website, comma, no DOI, because we don't have a DOI number in that case. This one, all the same stuff, but instead of the website address, we go comma, and then we go page numbers, period, because these actually do, and oftentimes, they contain page numbers, even though they're online, because it's a digital version of the paper version. But I have the database here, academic search complete. web.beta.ebscohost.com. This one has a DOI number, Digital Object Identifier, according to the Library of Congress, I think. And there it is right there. It goes directly to that article, with a period. So depending on where you get it, it changes the information you need. And all that stuff is like here in this book as well, on those pages, and it's also going to be on the citation, or not the citation, but the PowerPoint that I posted on Blackboard. Yes?
It's kind of silly, but if you put like the title, do you have to put a period at the end of the title?
Like the title of the article?
Yes.
Yes. It'll go inside the quotation marks, and also the title of the journal. You have a comma after that. Unless you have no volume issue numbers and you just put a period. It all depends on the particular type of situation that you're citing. Hopefully you see some patterns there. There are 79 different types of citations listed in the book, but I'm not going to ask you to know those. A lot of teachers will have like tests over this stuff and want you to memorize a whole bunch of different types. I don't feel like that makes any sense, because to me, every time you're writing a paper for a class, it's going to be outside of class. Anytime you're citing information, it's going to be information you get outside of class. So to me, it's like, as long as you know the basics, you can look it up in the reference work. So to me, I don't feel like we need to have like quizzes on the 79 different types of citations. I mean, like, how often are you going to need to know, like, off the top of your head, oh crap, how do I do published proceedings of a conference? Nobody's going to need that. Nobody's going to be like, quick, how do I cite this? And you're like in line at McDonald's. It's just not a thing. People still eat at McDonald's? Is that a thing? Some do. So we won't have to cite all those. No big deal. Just the ones you need. In-text citations, I've already kind of gone over this, but when you have the works cited entries like you just saw, those are at the end of the paper on a works cited page. And all the stuff that we were talking about earlier with like the last name and the page number, that's what goes inside the paper. So that you have the stuff inside the paper that refers to the thing at the end of the paper. It's kind of like footnotes and an index. Or what do they call it? A different type of book, not index, but footnotes and the, oh gosh, I'm blanking on this. Then my figures it out, tell me.
Footnotes?
Footnotes are at the bottom of the page.
I was just
I mean, they're
wondering.
all called footnotes, not to confuse me. Like bottom of page footnotes and the end of it.
Endnotes?
Endnotes, maybe? Oh, references. References. I can say it's like references. So here are the examples of that, parenthesis, page number, author name. Now the basic idea is this: you will have to use sources, references, articles in your upcoming papers, including the research paper, and you'll have to cite those sources correctly within your paper, including internal citation and works cited. Cause effect's a great paper to try to do it on because I'm not going to be grading you on how badly it's formatted. So if you have the formatting bad, that you're trying to do it, as long as you're including internal citation on the works cited page, it'll be a nice practice. Now, before you actually begin using research, I have a strong suggestion: as you gather sources, always make a works cited entry for that source as you go. I know you think like the works cited entry is the hardest part. In some cases it is, but I'll show you why it's really not that bad. Because I've looked up articles before in the database, and an hour later it's not there. Like we lost the rights, or like it was pulled an hour. You know, like when you go watch a movie on Netflix, or like you start watching a series, and you're like, yeah, this series is amazing, and you're like, oh, I got crap to do, I don't want to finish the last 2 episodes. And so you go and you do your stuff, and you come back the next day, and like the show's gone because they lost their like rights to it that day, and then you have to wait like until Netflix buys it again. Yeah.
Would you recommend us doing the citations ourselves, or can we just plug it into like a citation machine?
My issue with
Citation.
there are things that will build the citations for you, but I definitely, if you do that, I want you to check it against the book, because those are inaccurate sometimes. And I have a better method, I think, for most of our papers that's going to work for you to find here than the citation thing. But I'll get to that when we get to the database. So just make sure you, when you gather your sources, always write them down or have them saved somewhere on your computer, copy paste them. Otherwise you're going to lose them and forget where they are and want to cite stuff for your paper later, and it's impossible. The worst way to write papers is to try to write a paper first, then go find sources that agree with you. Oh my gosh. Like, you have no idea how hard that is. It's like if somebody gave you like a whole bunch of like sand and water and like rocks and pebbles and said, fit all this into the jar. If you try to put the sand and the water in first and the pebbles, and you try to fit these big old rocks in at the end, they won't fit. You'd be like, I don't have room like for 1 or 2. Because you did all the crap you're supposed to do at the end first. So you got to put your foundational stuff, the big rocks, the articles, in there first. Then the pebbles will filter in around it, and the sand and the water. So just do everything in the right order, otherwise everything ends up being a complete mess. That used to be a 5-minute story I told, and I boiled it down to 20 seconds. That's interesting. If you need any help online, like if your book is, missing or unpurchased, you could go to online with Purdue Owl. Just type that in Google, and it can help you. It used to be better than it is, and I've used both this book. I have this sitting in my house, like on the arm of a chair, because of how frequently I need this, and the Purdue Owl sucks to me compared to this. Like, this is so much easier to use, and it's put in like a little book form, whereas Purdue Owl, if you don't know exactly what you're searching for on Google, it's hard to find something, right? You always try to change your search terms, and if you don't know you're looking for published proceedings of a conference, but that's what you need, you're like, people were talking on the stage, I need to cite that. Like, you can't just type people talking on the stage into Google and it's going to know which one you're talking about. That's one thing Google has limitation for. So this is going to be better. You flip through, you go, oh, that's the one. But Purdue Owl is not set up like that, where you can just flip through things. You don't have to have the MLA handbook, but as a teacher, when you went to like a 4-year college, if you ended up doing English, you'd have to have MLA. If you did science, it's probably the big fat AP manual. You all seen one of those before? Like that tall, like that big, like that big. They look like a textbook. And it's MLA is tiny. That's why we start you off here. What is the you need milk before solid food? Right. Is that a biblical reference? I think it is, isn't it? I don't remember. Now, week 6, day 1 is next week. Week 6, day 1, our library presenter guy's coming. Has he been to one of your classes yet? Oh, good. We need to get him first. One of yours? He's going to come and show us how to use the databases. But I'm going to real quick show you how to get into a couple of the databases. Just pretend when he comes. Pretend like you haven't seen this before. Okay? Reinforced knowledge always helps you learn things better. But I want to show you real quick how to get to the databases if you want to find research. Now, the first thing I would do if I was going to the databases to find articles is I'm going to open up Microsoft Word because I want to have it ready to get stuff. Yes.
So are you saying like don't use this one for early calls, like try not to use the database?
No, no, no. I'm not saying that at all. You can use this all you want.
Okay. Alright, I don't know, I just kind of took that a little bit earlier when you said using knowledge that you already knew, you know what I mean, with epitope.
No, I was just saying, like, you don't have to go out and find research if you don't want. It's up to you. Oh, see, now, when I was saying what I would do, I meant literally I myself. Because I was a lazy student in school. So, hardworking students who want to go ahead and get this show on the road with the citations, I would, if I were a hardworking student when I was in school, I would go directly to databases. In fact, as I got to my graduate school years when I was a better worker, I started immediately going straight to the databases for just about everything.
So it's not bad. It's not bad.
No.
I feel like you need that.
No, no, no. In fact, I think I'd prefer that. I'm just saying, like, to force people to do that, I was just a little reticent to say. I think it was maybe because the question you said was, what would you do? And I was like, oh, well, me. Like, what should you do is a different question. Let's see. Oh, don't need to do that, do I? I don't want to go to a website that shows something of somebody's, so let's... well, what do I do? Oh, here we go.
You're opening up Microsoft Word, right?
Boom.
And then
I had to figure out how to not show, like, the last paper I was working on grading. I was like, how do I do that and not show that on the thing? Okay, so I open Microsoft Word just to have it in the background. I go to a website. So I want to go as the main website for PJC. From here, you go to Quick Links, Library Services. You scroll down to Databases Off Campus. The only time you'd ever be on campus is if you were on the Paris campus at a computer physically on that location, like attached by a wire to the wall. When you click the Databases Off Campus, it asks you do your student ID and password to get in.
same thing as Blackboard?
Yep,
Database is off campus.
Databases Off Campus.
Okay.
None of the other ones will work. Now, once you get here, there are two main databases that we generally use for all of our work that we do in this class. We use Opposing Viewpoints Resource Center for the research paper and the Essay 3, the comparison contrast, well, as well as the annotated bibliography. And the Academic Search Complete one is also one that we use. They each have their own limitations. Like, I'll show you, this one's easier to find stuff you're looking for. Like, it kind of categorizes things, and it's almost built like, you know, a pretty well done, like, book. So when you go here, you go to, like, Browse Issues. So if you know you want to find information on a particular one of those topics, like you're doing Snapchat or Tinder, you might scroll down and see if they have, like, a social media area. And they do have a social media area. So you can click it and see what they've got in there if anything's relevant for you. I don't suggest anybody, in fact, I'm going to require people don't use these things called viewpoints. Viewpoints. I know it's weird to have Opposing Viewpoint Resource Center and I tell you don't use the viewpoints. I just think that they're not as well researched as the other stuff that's on here, and I don't think they're good to be used as sources. It's kind of like using a Wikipedia entry. But if you scroll down further, there's statistics, academic journal articles, which are the best type of articles to find. Though they are a little longer, but they're the best, most well-researched articles that exist out there. News articles, if you're just looking for some news, because I don't mind people using news to help them with the cause-effect paper. Like, you're just looking for information here, and I'm not too worried about it being super, super credible on the cause-effect paper. So since you're citing it, I'll know where it comes from. Audio, I prefer people not cite the audio because I feel like, I don't know, audio presentations are generally not as credible because there's time constraints, commercials, stuff that's involved in that. But let's say that I did want to go, and there are reference works, magazines as well. Generally speaking, most of the work we do in class will be for news articles on database and academic journal articles. Let's say that I do see, I'm writing a Facebook paper. It's navigating a global power struggle. Let me click that one right there. In fact, let's click this first, go in and see what it looks like. And I'm like, oh, I like this one. Now it says correction notice. Uh-oh, that's probably not a full article. Crap. Well, let's see. Oh, Facebook wins again. There we go. Copy and conquer. Oh, police can't use its data for surveillance. I like that even better. Let's go to that. And there's the whole article there. Now, the reason I was saying that you don't necessarily need to use citation engine for this class is because at the bottom of every single article on the databases is the citation for that article. So you can copy it, go over to that Microsoft Word window you have open, even before you've read the article, just to be sure.
So it's already done for you.
Yeah, so I mean, you don't have to worry about it. And I always do the merge formatting paste, which is the middle one. And then you just got to clean up like the ruler and stuff. Why does it look so weird? Hello? I need to pin this. Pinned it. And then I drag the ruler over to make it look right. With works cited pages, the first line is over to the left and the rest of the lines are not. And like I told you, I don't like all this extra crap to be used there. And really apps and doc aren't that specific either, so you can just delete all that extra crap. Backspace it. And there we go. There's one thing it doesn't include that I'd like you to include, which is Gale has its own set of document numbers that are specific to that article. And I just like people to copy that and paste it to the end and put a period. Just in its form, the way it is. It's a way of, we don't have digital object identifiers for most articles in the opposing viewpoints, but we do have the Gale reference number. So I always say if it got some kind of reference number, include it. And just real quick, I'll show you how to get to, it's not going to take but a second. I'm just going to go back and show you how to do kind of the same thing on the Academic Search Complete database. Let's say I am doing social media. Here's what this looks like. Let's say that I'm looking for Facebook specifically, so I search it. And it says revealing images is Facebook, profile pictures from the Social Behavioral and Personality Journal. Sure, that sounds good. Let's click it. It does have the PDF full text. And this actually probably will look exactly as it did in the journal. Yes, it does. So that's how it looked. It's got page numbers and everything, which is so much more preferable. But it has citations too. You just click the little paper-looking thing on the side that says Cite. And you have to scroll down. You don't just take the first one. That's the Brazilian National Standard, which we don't use. You scroll down to MLA. You copy that. And that actually has a digital object identifier number built into the citation, so that's actually helpful. You don't have to cite a separate reference number. And then you do the same thing you did before, where you just paste it in. Luckily, it's in alphabetical order. The only problem with the Academic Search Complete is, and with the opposing viewpoints, is there are some little changes you have to make. Like, these names should not be in all caps. It's just somebody, when they typed it into the system, typed it in all caps. And as a result, it's all capsed here. It should be not capsed. You got to check like the formatting, make sure it matches the book. So I always suggest having it sitting right next to you open. And it's got all the stuff in the right place as long as you check it. Okay, that was me. I usually don't fit the database stuff in, so that's why I went a little over. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure people who wanted to use it could. You don't have to for the cause effect, but if you want to, go ahead. It's great practice. Y'all have a good one.